I introduce to you President-elect Barack Hussein Obama. Where were you when you heard those words? I remember exactly where I was, glued to the television screen, November 2008. I was so excited. I'm not a political person, so I don't usually have a lot to input when it comes to those type of things. I hear the debates and I see what's going on and I try to make my informed decision. But this was different. This was President now, former President Barack Obama up there, and you're watching the states turn blue. This state is blue. This state is blue. Oh no, this state is red. This state is red. And it was an exciting moment. We have here the first African American man who made it this far running for president of the United States, and it was an exciting time. I mean, he wasn't just the president of the United States. He was a symbol, and he still is a symbol. He's a symbol to everyone and anyone who was told, you're not white enough, you're not black enough, you're not tall enough, you're not skinny enough, you're not good enough. He was America's president. He wasn't just the president of the United States. He was America's president. And I think that's what made President Obama so great. But before we talk about him, we're going to go back a little bit about his childhood. Growing up, Barack Obama was born August 4th, 1961, to parents Ann Dunham and Barack Obama Sr., who's from Kenya. Now, he didn't really know his father at all. When he was born, his father wasn't there, and he'd only seen him once another time in his life, which was when he was 10. And so that left a void in Obama. According to his autobiography, he was talking about how he was the only one of three African Americans at the school that he attended in Hawaii. Very prestigious school, and he did great, but he went into the bathroom. He described this moment where he went into the bathroom at school and he stared in the mirror, and you can imagine looking in the mirror as a child, and he said he was looking at his face and his hands, and he realized that he was different. He didn't have anybody else around him that looked like him, and he wanted to know why is there nobody else that looks like me? Who am I? And that kind of started from there, where he started trying to figure out who he was, because he while his mother, and he gives her praise all the time, she did a great job, and he was really raised by his parents, because his mother later on had went to Indonesia, but raised by his grandparents, but that void was still there. And anybody who was raised by a single parent understood and understands that. And I think that's one of the things that made him such a great president, was because he had been through certain things and he could relate to, he was relatable. He was a very relatable president. And I think that all had to do with his childhood growing up. And when he was older, he visited Kenya. And he went there, and he said he stood at the grave of his father, the plot, and right next to his father was his grandfather. And he said he wept. He wept, and he cried, and he wept. And he said it was like he wept for years of taunting, and years of not knowing who he was, and years of not knowing who his father was, and why did you leave, Dad, and questions that went unanswered. And he said he stood there and he just wept. His voyage to Kenya changed him. That was his transition period, basically. Sometimes it takes a good cry to let it all out and then be able to move forward. And that's exactly what he did. When he came back to the United States, he came back charging. He went law school, he got degrees and joined committees, and he said, I'm going to be the voice. I'm going to be the voice of those who don't have one, or who don't know the laws, and who don't know what to do, don't know what avenues to take. And he joined so many different groups and organizations and formed some. He became the first president to be elected, first African American to be elected president at his law school in Harvard. And I think that was his first election, you would say, his first foot in the door into politics. Upon graduation, he joined several different organizations, and he decided to take on issues and take on things that other people did not want to do or didn't know how to do, how to start them off. He even, during 9/11, which is another thing in history that I'm sure everybody remembers exactly where they were during the time, he had a whole presentation or speech, if you want to call it, where he urged not to go into war in Iraq. We needed to focus on Afghanistan, and this is where it needs to be. But unfortunately, it went without saying. But that's just one of the things that he did before he was even president. I don't know if that was on his mind at the time, but before he was even president, that's a speech that he made, and it was widely received, but unfortunately fell on deaf ears. And that kind of, then he ran for a seat in the House, and unfortunately he didn't win. But that's the thing about Barack Obama. He didn't give up. He knew that, look, I have a goal. I have something that I am trying to achieve. And in order for me to achieve that, I have to keep going. I might get knocked down. I might fall. I might fail. But that doesn't mean that I stop. I keep going. And when he moved to Chicago and he met his wife, Michelle, she's so beautiful. And she was also studying law. And I think that dynamic between the two of them is kind of what pushed him forward as well, because you got to have a strong person there to support your dreams. And I think that's the role Michelle played. When he announced his nominee for president, I think it took everybody by surprise. Here's this senator who had to fight and fight and fight for that seat. And then when he finally got that seat after doing so much, and to announce his presidency, it was an amazing feeling, I can imagine. But he decided that I don't want to just stop at senator, I want to keep going. And to the audacity and to say that I can be the next American president. I mean, this isn't just for our time. This is for a time when my daughter will be studying him in school, and she's going to see somebody that looks like her, and she's going to know that I think I can do this as well. I think that if this man did it against all the odds, all the ludicrousy that came up during his presidency, and I think that's the other thing that we have to touch on when we're talking about Barack Obama, is his integrity. Barack Obama was definitely a man of integrity. I think this was one of the first, if not the first, very rare elections where there were no scandals. Barack Obama there tried to be scandals according to his birth certificate. Is he a U.S. Born citizen? Is he not a U.S. born citizen? I mean, all of it really was very ludicrous to me. But there was no woman popping out of the closet, no scandal, nothing that he had to hide, or his wife. And I think that speaks a lot, not just for who he was as a president, but for who he was as a man, as an individual, that he took great pride in his character and his integrity, and he won a Nobel Peace Prize for I believe, ending the war. He was given a Peace Prize for trying to bring unity among the other nations. I mean, this great man who wasn't sure if he could make a change, made the biggest. I mean, he changed history. There has been no other African American president. He came up and said, and his slogan throughout his first election was, "Yes, we can." And I believe that was something that he did insightfully and purposefully to give America hope, to give not just African Americans, but to give hope to America. He was handed not a Great Depression, but a down economy. He was handed trillions of dollars in debt. He was handed 2 wars going on at the same time. And he needed to let the American people know that, hey, if I can do it, then so can you, but I can only do it if you back me. I think that was one of the other things that made him such a great president, because he knew where he came from, he knew where he wanted to go, and he knew that he couldn't get there by himself. And so I thank you, President Barack Obama, for taking that step, for showing us that yes, we can, for giving us the hope that we needed at that time, and even for future generations to see that nothing can stop you when you have your mind set on something. And the President of the United States, the former President Barack Obama, I thank you.